Okay, well, welcome everyone. My name is Richard Waring. I'm a member of the PoemWorks community, having hosted these readings for more than a decade. And we have two wonderful featured poets tonight and several open mic readers. I want to start with a couple of quotes, things that I've come across in the last month that I thought were interesting. And the first one is by comedian Stephen Wright, who asks, why is the alphabet in that order? Is it because of that song? And you know, my name is Waring, and I'm at the end of the line. I mean, if I was Jonathan Abel, I'd be at the beginning. Does that affect anyone's life in any way? Just the fact that there's this arbitrary order in the letters of the alphabet? I wonder. So that's something to ponder. This I love. Rachel Carson, who I just love. She wrote, if there is poetry in my book about the sea, it is not because I deliberately put it there, but because no one could write truthfully about the sea and leave out the poetry.
Mm.
And lastly, our 24th poet laureate, Ada Limon, says, poetry has breath built into it. The line breaks, the caesuras, the stanza breaks. It has breath all around it. It literally wants us to breathe. It wants us to slow down, to stop. Now we're going to have a very interesting format here. Xiaoly is going to read half of her work, and then Spencer will read his allotment, and then Xiaoly will come back and read another half of her work. And Xiaoly is going to share the screen so you can also read along as she recites her poems. So Xiaoly Li is a Massachusetts Cultural Council Artist Fellowship grant recipient from 2022. Her poetry collection, Every Single Bird Rising, from Future Cycle Press 2023, was a Zone 3 Press Book Award finalist. Her poetry is forthcoming, featured or anthologized in Salamander, Saranac Review, Spillway, Pank, Chautauqua, Rhino, Verse Daily, and elsewhere. She's been nominated for Best New Poets, twice a Pushcart Prize, 3 times Best of the Net. She lives in Massachusetts, where her photography has been shown and sold in galleries in Boston. Xiaoly received her PhD in electrical engineering from Worcester Polytech Institute and her master's in computer science and engineering from Tsinghua University in China. Please let me apologize for any mispronunciations here, but please welcome Xiaoly.
Thank you, everyone. First, I want to thank Richard for hosting this reading, and thank Spencer for co-read with me. And next, I want to thank our PoemWorks group. It's like a big family, like a village. Every step in this journey, you are with me. Big thanks. And last, to our teacher, Barbara. Without her, I would not be here today. Today, I'm going to read from my poetry collection. I'm going to share the screen. And the title of the book is called Every Single Bird Rising. There are 4 chapters, and the first chapter is about life in China. Second chapter is about life in America. Third chapter is about pandemic. The last one is about a relationship. I'm going to read 2 poems from each. I hope each poem can be a little bird rising or singing, if not singing, at least chirping.
Mm.
Okay, first I'll read, this is art by a friend. First, I'm going to read Re-Education. Re-Education. We climb up a hill, carry small shovels, dig pigways, thornways, and little hogways, filling one small basket for food. We cut tender willow flowers and the leaves for salads. We swing sickles, raise bushes, carry them on our backs to the village as firewood. We set a trap using a wok in front of the chicken coop. A cat falls to our prayer for meat. The boys clean and cut the cat. We stir fry, dozen of us. A few bites each, not enough. In the night, I dream 3 red dates, shining and big. Bit by bit, I savor one. Chewy, sweet, and earthy. I save the other 2 for the morning. At the first ray of dawn, I get up, searching for those 2 dates. I regret not eating them all in my one sweet dream.
Nice.
Thank you. I'm going to read the next one from chapter 1. It's called March Onset. I can make it a little bigger. March Onset. 1. She rocks in the wet bamboo hammock in Beijing beside the pomegranate tree. I want to ask my mother, who was the best friend who betrayed you? My father had told me, not my mother. Her best friend reported her. Growing up, I never saw her smile. Her father worked for the old government and was sent to prison. She always thought she was singled out for country labor because of him. My urge to ask her burns. She swings higher and higher. Come, mother waves, pick one pomegranate. She opens the magenta rind. Hundreds of jewels weeping. Two, next to the lotus pond, my father slowly spins out a long curl of smoke. Her friend did what she had to do, he says. My biggest regret is not warning your mother, not tell anything to anyone, even her best friend. The cigarette butt burns to his fingers. I see his old sorrow, his years of reticence, survival in the era of doing what he had to do. From the tip of the golden lotus, the dragonfly takes off.
Wow.
Now I'm going to read third poem from chapter 2. 3 Shades of Green, chapter 2. I'll read the first one. My first day in America. I stepped forward to stand on a bridge arced across this small stream. The sun hangs high, the wind so lazy it stops. No one walks on these streets. I hardly hear cars pass by. To study abroad, a dream of distance. My first flight has reached so far, a continent of robins. Only yesterday, my mother told the nanny to hide my baby so that I would not hesitate to leave. In slow water, I see my face twitched into a mosaic. A leaf falls in, blood red.
Wow. Hmm.
I'm going to read the first poem, will be in chapter 2. Let's see. This one will be a tribute to Barbara. Poetry in a second language. Advice from my mentor, Barbara Hayat. You've been here for decades. How can you say your English is not good? You just need to read aloud each day. Get collected poems by Edna St. Vincent Millay and the Princeton Encyclopedia of Poetry and Poetics. Read every day. We'll find you another book when you finish Millay's. See the difference. Your reading is already better. Are you doing translation here? Stop that. Think and write directly in one language. You have not read aloud a poem each day recently. I can tell. I have read your poems 3 times. I believe numbers 2, 3, and 4 are really one poem. Themes and tone are the same. Why not try to put some of these lines into one verse? Give all that talk to one person, not to your mother, must be your father. This is your counter-revolution. You are safe now. Poetry is about truth and beauty. Truth is beauty. Sometimes your grammar is not right, but sometimes the unusual usage of language is fresh and good. You must be both smart and crazy to write good poetry. Why sunflower? Do most homes have sunflowers? What do you see out of the window this winter? How about a pine tree and the snow on the pine tree? Found a legendary story in Chinese culture. 女娲. Good. Use that in the last stanza. Go to your free rights to find the one line. As the final one. Yes, this. I step into the match of myself. Thank you. That's the first part.
Thank you, Xiaoly. That was amazing. Really, really fantastic.
Thank you, everyone.
So I'm going to introduce Spencer now. Spencer Thurlow is a poet and translator living in Boston. His work has appeared in the Georgia Review, Tokyo Poetry Journal, Granta, the Worcester Review, and others. He serves as a poet laureate of West Tisbury, Massachusetts, from 2018 to 2022. He co-translated Sonic Peace by Kiyoru Minashita, Phenome Media 2017, with Eric Hyatt, which was shortlisted for the American Literary Translators Association's 2018 National Translation Award, as well as the Lucian Strike Poetry Prize for Asian Translation. His latest translation with Eric is It Poetry by Hirato Toshiko, and it's forthcoming from Deep Vellum Press and has been awarded the 2021-2022 William F. Sibley Memorial Subvention Prize for Japanese translation. Please help me welcome Spencer.
Thank you, Richard.
I'm trying to find you. Where are you?
Oh, am I speaking, but there's no image? Is that?
Yes.
That's because there's only 2, 4, 6 pictures on the screen.
I suppose I could be just a
There you are.
Oh, am I here? I can see everyone and I can
I'm
see.
replacing
Okay.
you. Yeah, there you go.
I can see myself now.
You are spotlighted.
Great. Well, thank you, Richard, for that introduction and, of course, hosting. That was so wonderful, Xiaoly, to hear your work and yeah, your the poems that you've written there. Of course, especially the one featuring Barbara at the end. Of course,
Wasn't that amazing?
Yes, those barbarisms. Well, they're almost, yeah, I would call them barbarisms. It's kind of that suggestion. It's just very yeah, very special. So thank you. I look forward to hearing part 2 after I go ahead and read some of my own work, which I'll be reading all at once. So although I say that, and I almost have 2 parts. I'll first be reading some of my own work that I've written, and then after that I will be reading some translations that I've co-translated with Eric Hyatt, who I've been translating for Sonic Peace, and also for Toshiko Hirata's book, which Richard mentioned. But I'll be sharing some new translated work that we've finished more recently. But first, some new work by me. Okay. Lighting up childhood. Back to the wall, inside a blanket cave whose mouth opens to pillows, beyond which lies a brief ledge of sheets, then a drop down, darkness as comfortable with itself as January. One would never expect me here, much less inside my room full of figurine turtles, a shot glass collection that makes me imagine the lives of those who had used them the way pop culture imagines pirates. Every time I glance at the plywood spray-painted shelf where they're clustered as I head out. I come home to find the other me curled up in darkness all day while I was gone. I remake our blue force field, bright enough to deflect mischief, just dim enough to avoid real attention. Put a harder white sphere inside the blue one as a way of apology. Then I walk down the trail of thought I kept secret from my waking self, ease into it with vibrant control, bound if I want to, walk the woods by a mossy brook no one's set foot in this life if I want. Nakedness feels lovely inside nakedness. There I find a bedroom, blankets, beneath it me, inside that me, and I find myself over and over, smaller and smaller, until I'm tiny enough to be ignored. That's when I light up the room.
Wow, fascinating.
Geometry quiz. When you put the quizzes down beside lemonade still with fizz in the plastic cafeteria tumbler, let your face lower into your hands, wavering until it was like we were watching the scene in your movie where you cried in the bathroom. Miss Clements, I'm sorry about the homework. We were about to get started when you asked out of the blue if we'd read any of this. No. It was silence, thick as a plate shifting in a cupboard in an empty kitchen at midnight. Dabbing your eyes with a purple gold scarf so long it scraped the linoleum, you cleared the lemonade in one go, saying, we'll do the quiz later, saying, we need more time to get this right. H period Pilates. I'm shutting the door, ready? It's gonna get dark, so hey, close your eyes, roll out, lie down, check the paneled ceiling, the soles around you, free weights, foam mats, I know. They put us in the weight room, so we just need to find our own space to do our thing, where we'll raise our legs to just above the floor, then raise them more. Seagulls, tiny waves on the tape. It's good, isn't it? Take it from me. Breathe down, breathe downer like a voice. Sing with your skin for me. Be a heartbeat on this in this leftover gym room. Sip from the light biting through the old slit basement windows. Create your eyes. Split into 30 parts if you have to. Change into digestive tract. Blob out carpet cleaner smell. Burned on as you drag on if you must. Don't break it. Your body bending away off the seafloor like hot Achaean vents where life began. Rise up until you can sense sky from underwater. Get as close to that barrier as you can without erupting onto the flat, windless ocean of you. On a winter walk. I read this as poet laureate in front of the town meeting of Westbury, Massachusetts. I stop halfway across a field whose snow has thin skin like a toasted marshmallow. Witness a vision of me from just moments before, wearing the same wool hat pushed up, same gloves. I savor that man's predetermined world until the cold begins to pierce my coat, and I go on with my walk and make the loop, crossing my tracks again at the entrance. I was at first irritated that someone had been there before, then frightened as I looked up and stared, the many versions of me spooling from oak to oak around the field, doing as I would have done. Things would fall apart if I and every other me in time were here at once. It's nice to see us separating second by second. So nice, and yet I tread in my old footprints all the way back to the car. And this last one from my own work is titled Lunch. Here we are in the patio area at 2:30 on Tuesday with the last order of fries tightly sealed in a brown, greasy bag. My one hand leads yours, the other grazes an aluminum umbrella table burning so fiercely with cold that it threatens to reveal a truth. It's actually the winter solstice, but hey, it's not like you could have done anything. I get the hell out of there. In the car seat, I pay no mind to my old favorite pair of jeans, ripping a seam beneath my winter gut so that our lips can come together in celebration of this escape. So I'm going to go ahead and read a few poems by Hachikai Mimi, who is a poet and children's book writer in Japan. In fact, I think she makes her living writing children's books, but she's also a very well-known poet. So I'll read a few poems from her book. The Mantis. I skimmed this. Oh, sorry. And I should say, these are co-translated with Eric Hyatt. The Mantis. I skimmed the swaying hay, swooshed the mantis out before me, stiff-keyed, fingers quivering, brandishing scythe and scythe. I avoid the cross slash, and feel the deep stare of its eyes. I feel like I should know the face in between, burning, charred by this thick misunderstanding. The mantis moved closer, straddled with a force belonging to sky, something living in the wild. It entered, slid in without permission. I'm watching its back, the back of a man who needs a rest because he's wrapped up and falling apart. Silently, my time in such proximity to the stranger, both eyes glued to my chest and moving in the space between sharpness and dullness with a single breath that splits me open into dangled silence as he draws near, strikes with a freshly sharpened blade on the base of my replaceable neck. If you seek to collect a mantis, aim quickly around the waist. Push it low. Yes, that's it. That's it. Never, ever from the front. The white blade of the scythe cannot reach behind. Its body has more faint warmth than expected at that time. Don't touch it. While it's tossing all hatred behind, while it's paddling the oars of excuse and passing suspicion from back to front, as it's done for thousands of years, a scythe for defeating past and future that has no end. The first misunderstanding came from the mantis swimming in hay. I killed him with a single whack at his neck from my insect net. This next one's titled Reunion Quarrel. Why does she slouch so much, this motor-mouthed woman planning to drown me with words? We kneel facing each other, knee to knee, under a breath where we can't be seen, crepuscular shadows of towering trees, covering all of Odaiba Seaside Park. Red coral creeps arboreal at 165 fathoms. Is she trying to landfill the space between our two floating souls with polyp words, kelp leaves of speech? A crab hides in white coral at 140 fathoms. She never noticed. I can't get a word in between the ropes of her pulley tongue, which can't be moist toweleted away. So she wipes her lips. Word polyps adhere to the seabed, extending branch. Suddenly, I don't recognize this part of the ocean where the tide rises every moment. No plateau I can call home. Pink coral flourishes at 95 fathoms. Branches shadow in the slouch of her back. Shadow me. I just want to talk about myself. I just want to talk. I don't want to listen, but the flood tide of air keeps pulling and pushing. I'm overtaken by the tide, nothing to say back. I look her in the eyes once, but the tide is flowing, flood tide flowing, so many words that I need a boat. Red coral creeps arboreal at 225 fathoms. Oh, really? I'll text you. Okay, take care. She only wants to speak about herself. Did she forget she has 2 ears? Did she drop them along the way? I'm neck deep in the flood tide, Kuroshio current, seafloor, where a trawling net can't reach, where light folds into the bases of waves. I make a noise that leaves her slouching where she is. Orange coral, white coral, pink coral, crimson coral takes time to form.
Wow.
This next one is titled this crab here, and usually we don't do translators notes. We try to avoid that. But the first line of this poem is from Song 42 of the Kojiki, which is an ancient volume of Japanese poetry from the 600-700s. So she pulled the first line. This crab here, where do you come from, crab? Many a day away. Past and future, consumed by this island's shadow, swelling, rising, my armored shell, touching the heels of sunbathers, my claws, 2 passing trains. I'm caught, roasted, eaten, my shell rolling around a boat being tossed into the waves. In the midst of nowhere, I navigate kelp fragrance, this journey, inevitable. This deer here, where do you come from, deer? I'm a deer in the ancient Nara Park. I go back countless generations. My life, grass, walking on grass. I eat tourist crackers and step in what falls out of my bum. Crossing horns, locking horns, drop and thrive again, branch out. I am grasped at, targeted, sparrows alight, and flies spend the night on me. Of late, I'm so confused. What am I doing? This bear here, where do you come from, bear? My chestnut mountain bear. Bear bile actually works, said someone I hadn't seen in 2 years. My cousin hunts them. Bile from a bear is so rare, precious. Drinking it, it kicks in right away. Under the table, I finger count the bears I care for as quickly as possible. 4, 5, 6. A stranger presses his face to the window. And the last one I'll read today is called "Tonight We Are Predators," and it's the title poem of her book. Tonight we are predators. Don't speak, don't make a sound. Tonight, fins touching. Don't hear, don't do anything, don't interfere, don't make a sound. We lie on our sides, fins touching, empty, bodies, empty lengths, reflected in ice slick. Don't make a sound, don't make a sound like we do, calling out one after another, shining souls burning up, defying the law of water to the end. Scales jarred loose onto ragged rocks, the riverbed uprooted as we rise, carried away. Let pebbles tremble, let shadows chase, gills breathe. We must hide our voices in a wild blaze of color. No hesitation, we set the precedent of silence, night cloaked, stung by the moon. The night of the salmon run is coming. Tonight is ours alone. Whose magic is this? If humans hear us, they'll die. Don't forget, as we swim up, breathe together, the riverbed, scent of water, abyss of scales. We bruise from the inside out, you and I. Join our thoughts, bind our night's purpose. Migrate through blue-white rapids. We can't breathe in fresh water, crushed above, crushed below. Although we all have something to claim, we get away from gills that won't filter. Piled gestures, the sounds that take us by surprise, become satisfied and after disappear. The riverbed strewn with the sound of scales, river light, humans' houses. The night of the salmon run has come. Tonight is ours alone. Whose magic is this? If humans hear us, they'll die. Tonight, don't make a sound. Don't speak. Thank you.
Wow, Spencer, that was really great. This has been such a trans world evening of poetry, and there's more to come from Xiaoly. But I want to know, do you make a distinction with the translations between you and Eric? Do you take turns with it, or is it kind of like Lennon and McCartney kind of thing.
Well, we're currently working on a piece that has gotten much longer than we ever intended, about our process and how we translate. Basically, it boils down to a whole lot of debate. I mean, we have things we believe and we go at each other about it. But then at the end of it, we have draft and we bring it to PoemWorks. We bring it to our peers, and they give us feedback. And you know, at the beginning, maybe I have my version, Eric has something that he says, but then you know, it gets so blended together and mixed together that it really becomes its own poem and separate from our own voices. And it's so cool when that happens.
But I will say that your own work seems to be that of somebody with a sensibility that is attuned to Asian culture and language.
My work has most assuredly been affected by the poets whose work I translate. In translating, I love it because you get to close read poems. When I was an undergrad doing my English major and stuff, like we'd have this assignment where we'd have to define every single word in some John Donne poem or something, and go to the OED for everything. And I never thought I'd have to do that again. But poetry, you have to translation, you have to do that. So it's really I really learn so much about the poet, and of course it affects me.
So now we're going to turn from a English language based poet translating from an Asian language to an Asian poet translating her own work into English.
Yeah, first, I want to thank Spencer. Those poems are beautiful. It felt like a native language writer. It flows so well. It has no jittering of that translation normally have. And it has that word play, rhymes, and it's just beautiful. Thank you. And next, I'm going to read. Oh yeah, I'll share screen first. I'll read from the 3rd chapter. Evolve. I'll read the first poem. Your fire and thunder, for Dr. Li Wenliang. They muzzled your warning. The virus spread. It killed you, killed those delaying weddings, those collapsed on the street, and those crushed by unrelenting work to save. Ragged cries during Lunar New Year, muffled by marching songs, evaporate to clouds that will come back as rain.
I love the sound effects that you're adding to this poem.
Thank you.
From the outside.
In the thunder, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, the flashing thunder. Next one, I'm going to read 3rd chapter, this one. From darkness comes the waning crescent. For the many who struggle during COVID-19, this green rain day, you who suffer and cling to breath, your minds in desolation, embrace the new moon tomorrow. Young shoots dream of trees with life anchoring roots, wiping the earth with standing, this wind, this forest, to shade the world as willing. Your souls still dwell, a butterfly only loses her iridescent glow after she lays eggs. Persevere from chrysalis to winged being. May thunder, may rain.
Wow. Mm.
Next, I'm going to read from last chapter. Oh, but this chapter is called. First one, I'll read this one. What's language? What language? The murmuring of bees long absent is replaced by the rasping of wasps sniffing loose stripes. A sage wren on the tips of reeds opens her beak, sings a choir along the mud road alone. What sound, what language can I use to find her? The word love is fluid, amazing river's time. The Milky Way fades into the city's lights, the way I lost her. Even without words, uphill is Yuka's story. The plant and the mouse, perfectly timed pollination and the seeds survive together. At least I can learn the wren's song, but I'm still waiting for the bees humming, their stoic living, making the world bloom.
Very
Wow,
nice.
that is amazing. Love that.
Thank you. Next one, I'll read the last poem in the book. A perfect storm. I don't know if my poems come from inside or outside, or if they have a trace in the sky. I don't know if my purple knew she was leaving us on this October day. No hint, not a slightest, or I would have gone to her before her passing. I don't know if she consciously pulled the life-saving tuber away. She had heard my gongong's calling from the sky for over half a year. Did she finally go and meet him in the afterland hand in hand? I don't know when the refugee women and children can return to their homeland ruined and shelling, and shelling, and shelling. The little girl asks, "Why are you crying?" as she wipes her mother's tears away. When can I see my parents in the motherland? How to get a visa? How to find a flight uncancelled? How to stand a long quarantine first? I dream of a good feng shui place, backed by the mountain and fronted by the river, safe against the rising sea. I don't know where. Sometimes I still wake up when it's my turn to take dream meals. I don't know how my heart still can't break free. I dream of being a grandmother soon, confident in flesh and poetry. I don't know when. Now I will arise, drive to Horn Pond again. One swan sits on the nest in reeds, the other forages. I want to see the sickness on their first worldly day. Thank you.
Bravo.
Yeah,
Thanks.
should have read in public before.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Not muted. Not muted.
Well, I want to mention that we're going to take a little summer hiatus. Probably traveling or writing poems, getting inspiration. So we will resume September 1st with Francis Donovan and Kevin Gallagher. And I have an aura of feeling about Ben Berman, Karen Elizabeth Sharp, Amy Alvarez, and others. So stay tuned for that. But meanwhile, we have some wonderful responses ahead in our open mic. And I want to introduce our first reader in that set, a man by the name of Rick Reibstein.
Over headlight, I can't see it.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Xiaoly. Thank you, Spencer. A lot of fun. Something else. When something I least expect to make me happy makes me happy, it is a gift from something else. Today I was walking, and though so tired, kept going, and my feet were aching. I stepped in a puddle. The sudden coolness on the bottom of my feet. A part of me said, "Oh no," that part that plans and says, "Ruined your shoes. The rest of this walk will be hell." But something was laughing, and I had to laugh along with something else.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's great. Our next reader is Kathryn Leonard-Peck.
There.
Let me,
Sorry, I wasn't sure with the reading order.
yes,
This is, can you all hear me? Great. This is called The Descent. It's a staggered sonnet.
But we can't see you.
you have a visual?
No, my camera's not working. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
The Descent, a staggered sonnet. I set my watch according to the lift, await the moment the oiled gears grind, gray steel and grease above the untouched drift of spring corn snow and massive steeps enshrined. First tracks in powder slice the cleanest fall, where ore-mad diggers scratched, now lightning skis. Curved whispers raise white demons, and kestrel howl, enchant the world to freeze. As storm-healed Hermes, every breath a star, comet falling, tempest angel lost, like Lucifer laughing, who are kicked ajar, by carved transcendence in a blaze of frost. When slopes surrender, edge-run tricksters know, Valhalla kindled in the violet snow. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. And now, Tain Leonard-Peck.
Hey, okay. I'm reading a little free verse poem called Nevermore tonight. I don't know how a chill wind will slip, or the thin light will fail in the coming winter. Will the cliffs and the pinnacles give high places to rest, or will the ice turn every rock eerie to a cruel, fatal spike? Will the towns give life, scraps of fruit, bread, old meat, or will they seal themselves tight while I circle alone? Will I rise, jet feathers, or will I be lost, black angel of summits, in an abyss of frost? Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. Up next, Linda Lamenza.
Hi. I've been doing a lot of gardening lately, so I picked one of my gardening poems. This is called While Gardening. In the woods behind our house, grief grows wildly, all the lush and heart-shaped leaves I need. Grief embeds itself into the root systems of strawberry plants, takes every available inch of earth, tries to strangle the perennials. I gently gather the strawberry plants at the base with my left hand and tease out the grief with my right. I hurl the grief over toward my bucket.
Wow, thank you. Up next, Steve Nickman.
Thanks, Richard. And thanks, Xiaoly and Spencer, for your wonderful work. In the elevator. Mostly strangers, here enclosed. A few with fear of boxed-in places. We stand in equidistant spots, ensuring interpersonal spaces. And our own bubbles, we barely note the small boy's cry, his woeful faces. But now we thaw. His mother kneels, relieves his feet, reties his laces.
Wow, thank you so much. And now, please welcome Margot Wizansky.
Hi, everyone. That was
Hi.
a beautiful reading. Okay. Walt Whitman shakes my hand. As I make my way to the library, he walks toward me. So tall, his head is up in the oaks, his hat a near disaster, beard a bit scraggly, rumpled blue shirt open at the collar, his twill trousers rumpled too, not strong enough to stand up to strenuous work, but he's not dressed for leisure either. He shakes my hand, squeezing it in his giant grip, and he goes on, observing. This, his occupation, ambling the streets of our white clapboard town, not hastening, where a plaque on each house announces when in Walt's lifetime it was built, where a black-capped chickadee sings out its name from the shine and shade of the alder tree, where sailboats bob on their moorings, where laughing gulls sully the cockpits, tearing apart lunch of fresh fish, where white sails sparkle on the bay this afternoon of southwest winds, where children splash in the shallows in front of the white stucco bathhouse, the beach littered with their bright plastic buckets and shovels, where muscled young men guard the beach, their noses white with zinc, and they eye bikinied young women from their perches, high in the terrible throes of desire, where folk line up, baseball caps turned backward to wait their turn for ice cream at the truck on the town wharf, where people are oblivious of the hate that might fester in their human hearts on this perfect day, oblivious of the damage caused by privilege, where the only working man in sight is the ice cream scooper, cutting deep into the frozen stuff with his disher. And Walt Whitman strolls back to the library where we wait for him to speak of the procreant urge of the world, love root, silk thread, crotch and vine, ever the sobbing liquid of life. The words of our poet of the body, our poet of the soul, his dangerous words, of sex and birth and love.
Wow. Fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you, Margot. And now please welcome Connemara Wadsworth.
Thank you. I enjoyed very much hearing both Xiaoly, whose poems I've heard before, but it was a treat to hear her read. And Spencer, I haven't seen you in 100 years. So it was really a treat to hear your work. By the river Piedra, I sat down and wept. Every road I traveled led back to you, is the whatever you call it. They fell in love with Venice. It called them back and back. After jobs and family, they would retire there, visit all they'd set aside, make music with friends, new galleries, concerts, museums, ancient sites, so bought a small flat, a place to land. Together they visited only once, for my father to say goodbye to friends before he died. She returned twice a year alone. Was it to keep their dream alive? Coming back, should stay a night with me, travel worn but full. Happy, I'd say, as emotions rarely left from her. She'd fill the evening with highlights, a lecture on Tolstoy or the Tyrol, dinners with friends, tea with Ezra Pound's daughter. My mother, a widow on her own, following her gifts, keeping her dreams alive. One morning, she came downstairs, book clasped in her hand, a finger holding a page, crying deeply, blurted out the story of the two-parted lovers who agreed to meet years later by the river Piedra. She on one side weeping, he a ghost on the other. I held my mother as she blurted, I haven't fully grieved, and unleashed a river of tears for my father, as if yesterday, as if 10 years before, she hadn't sobbed till she couldn't.
Gorgeous.
True story.
Of course.
Thank you.
Up next, Carmen Pont.
Can't hear you.
You got to unmute.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Thank you very much to all of you for this lovely reading. And I'm going to read a translation that I made myself from the Spanish, and it's called In a Garden of Dragonflies. In a garden of dragonflies, and suddenly from the shadow of a cove, the dragonflies burst forth. Here they were delicate lilac brooches in flight. There, the stained glass fragments of a radiant Tiffany lamp. Here, they were acrobats woven of silver. There, a pair of earrings. Here, a swirl of transparent arabesques. There, slim cylinders suspended over the waters. Tiny peacocks cooling off the briefness of their lives with a beat of a Spanish fan. Among the blue and green pirouettes quivering in the afternoon heat, each dragonfly was a lace of gems that blinked. Through the dark galleries of the Museum of Stones, You knew then that a treasure of luminous arrows was dancing just for you, while below, with her hair of jade, the algae freshly swayed. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Such amazing creatures. Up next, Sara Epstein.
Okay. Great evening. What better way to spend this evening in the thunderstorm? I am going to read the last poem in my book that just got published, Barbara. It's called White Bear Approaching. Out for a walk with my blonde-haired friend, we dip suddenly several yards below the surface to the underside of the woods. We talk, but I am wary. The earth mover is digging out new trails of tunnels all around us. I wonder when the roof of the tunnels will collapse, trapping us beneath. Straight ahead, I see a white bear approaching, fear and anger in his awesome gait. Will this end like those fairy tales and mythic campfire stories with little me befriending the giant spirit bear? I do not know the secret language of befriending bears and watch speechless from above as the fighting begins with a second bear. Snarls and growls and scratching claws, relieved only by waking from the dream. Thank you.
Thank you. And now our penultimate poet, Wendy Drexler.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Richard, first of all, just for hosting all these years, and always your wonderful humor as well. And first, I just wanted to ask Carmen, who was the Spanish poet you translated from? That was really a beautiful poem, the Dragonflies.
It's my own poem.
Oh, okay, translated from the Spanish. Okay, I translated your, yeah,
Okay.
beautiful. Also, thank you, Xiaoly and Spencer. Xiaoly, it's I'm so proud of your work and your new beautiful book. I remember sitting at Barbara's table with you years and years ago, and the barbarisms were just so great and so true. And just think of all your perseverance and how hard you've worked for such a beautiful book, and it really is. One thing that really struck me hearing the poems tonight is how you end so often with just an image. I noticed, what was it? The leaf, blood red, the dragonfly, the clouds that will come back as rain. Just really concise. And you just have a really unique voice that I think has been forged through your immersion in English after speaking Chinese for so many years, but you have a special sensibility that's really your very own that is also wonderful. So thank you. And Spencer, it was great hearing your work, and those translations are really wonderful, this poet. And I especially love that title poem. Seemed to be a lot of aquatic life in those poems. I'll be interested in reading your essay too, that you're doing with Eric about your process. Okay, this is called Meditation, and it's kind of a Susian sonnet, and it has a line by Marguerite Yourcenar, and her line in the poem is sorry mixture of blood and lymph. Meditation. The candle isn't bothered by the flame. Light doesn't complain when swallowed by dusk. Pebbles don't mourn the mountain they've crumbled from. Mountain lions fatten on feral burrows that are wrecking wetlands. The Australian crocodile that makes a fine meal of feral pigs doesn't know it's endangered. The pigs don't know they're invasive. We're all ravenous, cascading tragedies, dipping into glimmers of relief, gripping the flywheel, trying to get by, sorting angels from villains, poachers from preachers, loners from shooters, all of us wreathed in this sorry mixture of blood and lymph. I mean, look at me shelling invasive Asian tiger shrimp for dinner, tearing off the soft swimmerets that once streamed, seaweed and brooded eggs, slitting the fleshy crescent with a paring knife as my thumbnail scrapes the white vein that once carried the colorless blood. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Wow. I am going to end this by reading a poem that I mentioned earlier by D.H. Lawrence. The poem is called Lightning, and it's a warning. Lightning. I felt the lurch and halt of her heart next to my breast, where my own heart was beating, and I laughed to feel the plunge and bound, and strange in my blood-swept ears was the sound of the words I kept repeating with lightened breath, with arms in the hot blood blindfold art. Her breath flew warm against my neck, warm as a flame in the closed night air, and the sense of her clinging flesh was sweet, where her arms and my neck's thick pulse could meet. Holding her thus, could I care that the black night hid her from me, blotting out every speck? I leaned in the darkness to find her lips and claim her utterly in a kiss, when the lightning flew across her face, and I saw her for the flaring space of a second, like snow that slips from a roof, inert with death, weeping, not this, not this. A moment there, like snow in the dark, her face lay pale against my breast, pale, lost love in a thaw of fear, and melted in an icy tear. And open lips distressed, a moment, then darkness shut the lid of the sacred ark. And I heard the thunder and felt the rain, and my arms fell loose, and I was dumb. Almost I hated her, sacrificed, hated myself and the place and the iced rain that burnt out my rage, saying, come home, come home. The lightning has made it too plain. So I think that still has a little relevance and resonance for these times. So let me open this up and hear from everyone how you've gotten through this evening of thunder and lightning and amazing words, some of which contain the word rain. It's really been interesting to have that soundscape as we've proceeded with these, our words. I was talking to Xiaoly and Spencer earlier about just the interesting aspect of language passing through us from different directions. And I recalled how once I read some of Shakespeare's sonnets that were translated from the German into English, and how that process changed them from the original English. And so we managed to embed some of ourselves inadvertently in what we're translating. It's never a perfect thing. And how I think Pinsky once remarked that he was better able to praise his translated work because it wasn't something he wrote, but it was passed through him. So there's that interesting aspect. And then there's also taking your own works and translating them from one language into another, where you can liberally plagiarize from your own work because it's your own work.
When I was a student in Denmark, where I was for a school year, I had to learn Danish, which is not a beautiful language. It's got glottal stops in it and so on. But I worked really, really hard and I became fluent. It's all gone now, but the thing that I did was try to write first I started translating from the Danish some haiku, and then I tried writing haiku in Danish. So the mixtures of language and sounds can be quite it grabs you.
Xiaoly, I really appreciated the poems about the pandemic, and in answer to Richard, you asking like why tonight, what was special about it. Along with all the thunder and lightning, there were also a lot of sirens. Something must have been going on. Lightning hit somewhere or something. So it was going along with the pandemic poems and remembering that those times.
Yeah, that's in May. So yeah, it's just past it. Yeah, when I read poem in the beginning, I did do translation. I think in Chinese first, then think what to say in English. But Barbara said stop doing that. So after a while, I don't do that anymore. It's the emotion or thought of what I have an emotion, just find the words for it. I don't distinguish what language anymore. The words just come. If it's English, and mostly it's English now, but sometimes there's no, that feeling, I don't have enough English words for it, then I have a Chinese words come. Then I go to for its English words. So it's like a mix of words. So the basic thing is not words anymore. It's what's behind, what's the foundation of the words. And you're trying to find things to describe that.
Yeah, and Spencer, I kind of get the sense of some people say you are what you read, and I see that happening with your work on both sides of the language barrier.
Yeah, I always absorb whatever I'm reading at the time. It can be frustrating actually. If I read like a good book, I'll start writing in that voice of whoever's in that book or something. But I enjoy that. It's interesting. Well, of course, the translations are from Japanese, and there's a lot of course influence there. But in my own work, it's interesting to hear that reflection from you. It's these poems, these ones I read today, are all new, written in the last year, 2 years or so, and they're mostly in a different style than I'm used to, or that I normally write in. So I guess I'll take that as a compliment. I think
Absolutely,
certainly the things I read rub off.
Another thing that really struck me in your work, Xiaoly, and is in your poems, the re-education and the one about your mother's betrayal, to think of, what I read about only in books or about the Cultural Revolution, but to know someone who's in her lifetime has really lived that, and it's decades later, but that it's your own story, and I think of our relatively comfortable lives. I mean, granted, and COVID and many other things, but I certainly have never, experienced anything like what you went through. And it's, I'm really just glad that you were able to write about these really powerful experiences that are part of, history, but told from your own very personal point of view. So I really love hearing those too.
And it's a window that we don't have around us as well.
Yeah, mainly it's because of our group. Because most of the time, I don't want to write it so personally or so detailed, because we are usually very moderate or have a lot of unconscious fears. I'm here still, probably still have so many fears. But our group just keep pushing, dig out what's underneath, like what Barbara used to do. Yeah, so that's let us see ourselves, see our life at a deeper level.